Last night, late-night television witnessed its most explosive confrontation in years, when tech magnate Elon Musk and host Jimmy Kimmel's discussion about climate solutions erupted into a battle of wits and ego. What began as playful banter quickly descended into a tense showdown that left the audience stunned and the network scrambling. The studio lights seemed unusually bright that evening at the El Capitan Entertainment Center. The Jimmy Kimmel live audience buzzed with anticipation as the show's familiar jazz intro faded and Kimmel bounded onto the stage with his characteristic grin. His monologue touched on the day's politics and celebrity gossip before his voice shifted to a more dramatic tone. Tonight we have a very special guest, a man who sells electric cars, launches rockets, and occasionally tanks cryptocurrency markets with his tweets. Please welcome the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, Elon Musk. Applause erupted as Musk strode onto the stage in his typical black blazer over a dark t-shirt, offering a reserved wave to the audience. The two men exchanged pleasantries, with Kimmel making quips about Musk's recent social media posts and business ventures. For the first few minutes, everything proceeded according to the usual late-night format, light conversation sprinkled, with rehearsed jokes that drew polite laughter. "So, Elon," Kimmel said, leaning forward in his chair, "I hear you've got some new master plan to save us all from climate doom. Something about solar-powered drones?" Musk nodded, his expression brightening as it always did when discussing his technological visions. "Yes, actually. It's a climate intervention system using high-altitude drones equipped with reflective panels that can be deployed strategically to reduce regional heat peaks." "So, you want to block out the sun?" Kimmel asked, eyebrow raised. "Isn't that basically the plot of The Simpsons, where Mr. Burns tries to plunge Springfield into eternal darkness?" The audience laughed, but Musk maintained his composure. "It's nothing like that, Jimmy. These drones would create localized cooling effects in areas experiencing extreme heat waves. They're solar-powered and programmed to dissipate after their mission. It's targeted geoengineering, not some cartoon villain plot," Kimmel smirked. Right. Because billionaires tinkering with the planet's thermostat has always worked out so well for everyone." The first signs of tension appeared as Musk's smile tightened. "I understand skepticism, but we're facing a planetary emergency. We need bold solutions alongside carbon reduction." "Bold solutions," Kimmel repeated, dragging out the words. "It just seems like every time there's a crisis, tech billionaires swoop in with some gadget that conveniently keeps their companies at the center of the solution, and their bank accounts growing." A few uncomfortable titters rippled through the audience. This wasn't the light-hearted banter they had expected. Musk shifted in his seat, his casual demeanor fading. "That's a cynical take," Musk replied. "Tesla and SpaceX were built around addressing existential challenges, sustainable energy and making humanity multiplanetary. These aren't get-rich-quick schemes." "No, of course not," Kimmel said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "I'm sure the 220 billion net worth is just a happy accident." The camera cut to the audience, capturing their uncertain expressions. This was rapidly departing from the usual celebrity promotional interview. Guillermo, Kimmel's security guard and sidekick, looked nervously from the wings. "Money is just a resource allocation mechanism," Musk responded, his voice even but with an edge creeping in. "Every dollar I make gets reinvested in solving humanity's problems." "All of it?" Kimmel pressed. "None goes to, say, buying social media companies on a whim or building luxury bunkers in New Zealand?" Musk's eyes narrowed. "I don't have luxury bunkers, Jimmy, but maybe you're projecting the priorities of your Hollywood friends onto me." The studio temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees as the exchange continued, with Kimmel abandoning his notes and leaning into the confrontation. "Let's talk about these drones then. Who controls them? Who decides which regions get cooled and which don't? Let me guess. Another Musk-controlled company?" The technology would be open source, Musk countered, with deployment decisions made by an international climate governance body. This isn't about control, it's about survival. Open source like Twitter became more open after you bought it? Kimmel shot back, drawing a mix of oohs and nervous laughter from the crowd. Musk's calm facade began to crack. You're not engaging with the actual idea, Jimmy. You're just taking cheap shots for ratings. I came here to discuss something serious. Oh, I'm sorry, Kimmel said, not sounding sorry at all. I forgot comedians aren't allowed to question the grand plans of tech messiahs. The commercial break couldn't come soon enough. As the red light on the camera blinked off, both men sat in tense silence, neither looking at the other. The audience murmured among themselves, sensing they were witnessing something unscripted and raw. When the cameras rolled again, Kimmel attempted to steer the conversation back to safer territory, but Musk wasn't playing along anymore. You know what's interesting, Jimmy? Musk said, cutting across Kimmel's question about upcoming Tesla models. You mock solutions while offering none yourself. It's easy to sit behind that desk and criticize people who are actually building things. Kimmel's professional smile faltered. My job is asking questions, Elon. And when someone proposes launching a fleet of sun-blocking drones, questions need to be asked. They're not sun-blocking. That's deliberate mischaracterization, Musk said, his voice rising slightly. And yes, questions should be asked, but informed ones, not gotcha setups for your monologue. The studio audience shifted uncomfortably as the tension mounted. This was no longer entertainment. It was becoming a genuine ideological clash between two influential figures with very different worldviews. Kimmel's producer was frantically signaling from offstage, but the host ignored her. Here's an informed question then, Kimmel said, leaning forward. What happens when your drones malfunction and create extreme weather events? Who gets sued when crops fail because Elon Musk played God with the atmosphere? Musk's eyes darkened. What happens if we do nothing, Jimmy? Have you considered that scenario? Because the models are clear. We're headed for catastrophe without intervention. As their voices grew sharper and the exchange more heated, viewers at home were gripped by the unexpected drama unfolding on their screens. Twitter, now X, exploded with hot takes and video clips. The confrontation was rapidly becoming the most talked-about late-night moment in years. And in the midst of this verbal warfare, neither man noticed that the ordinary rules of television, decorum, had been abandoned, or that they were about to cross a line from which there would be no easy return. You know what I find fascinating, Jimmy? Musk said, his voice dropping to an unsettlingly calm register. How quickly entertainers become experts on complex technological solutions. Did you review the white paper my team published last week? Or are you just repeating talking points you heard at a Hollywood fundraiser? Kimmel's face flushed. The audience, sensing blood in the water, grew uncomfortably quiet. I don't need a PhD to know when someone's selling snake oil, Kimmel retorted, abandoning his signature laid-back persona. These drones, how many are we talking about? Thousands? Millions? And who pays for the inevitable cleanup when they crash or malfunction? As opposed to cleaning up after climate disasters? Musk countered. Tell me, what's your brilliant solution? More celebrities flying private jets to climate conferences? More empty promises from politicians who won't be alive to face the consequences? The show's director was frantically signaling for a commercial break, but Kimmel waved him off. This had become personal. At least I'm not selling false hope packaged in a tech bro wrapper, Kimmel said. These aren't harmless experiments, Elon. You're proposing tampering with atmospheric systems we barely understand. And you're proposing what exactly? More of the same failed approaches? Musk leaned forward, his eyes intense. This is exactly why progress stalls. Gatekeepers like you who'd rather make jokes than confront reality. The studio audience was riveted. Phone cameras were raised throughout the theater, capturing what was rapidly becoming a viral moment. Gatekeepers? Kimmel scoffed. That's rich coming from the man who wants to single-handedly decide how we engineer the planet's climate. Have you consulted with, I don't know, the rest of Earth about this plan? Every solution gets started somewhere, Musk replied icily. Would you rather I ran it past a committee of comedians first? Kimmel's producer was now standing just off camera, making frantic cutting motions across her throat. They were 4 minutes over the segment time, and network executives were blowing up her phone. We need to take a break, Kimmel finally conceded, but Musk wasn't finished. No, let's not take a break, he insisted, ignoring television protocol. This is too important to dilute with commercials. You invited me here, presumably to discuss something substantial, only to ambush me with uninformed criticism. Ambush you? Kimmel's voice rose an octave. You're Elon Musk. You control more wealth than some countries. Don't play victim here. The tension in the studio was palpable. Guillermo, who normally maintained his position off camera, had instinctively moved closer to the stage, unsure if physical intervention might become necessary. Wealth isn't the point, Musk said. Knowledge is. And you're spreading dangerous misinformation about technology that could save millions of lives. Dangerous misinformation? Kimmel repeated, incredulous. I asked legitimate questions about accountability and oversight. Questions that apparently trigger you. I'm not triggered, Musk replied, his voice dangerously quiet. I'm disappointed. This could have been a thoughtful discussion about humanity's most pressing challenge. Instead, it's devolved into cheap sound bites. Kimmel stood up, something he rarely did during interviews. Well, I'm sorry to disappoint the great Elon Musk. Maybe next time bring a solution that doesn't involve technological Hail Marys controlled by private corporations. The audience gasped. Standing during an interview was tantamount to calling for its conclusion, an unmistakable sign that hospitality had been withdrawn. Musk remained seated, a calculated power move. I brought data and peer-reviewed research. You brought jokes and cynicism. History will judge which approach was more useful in addressing climate change. History can judge all at once, Kimmel shot back. But right now, regular people need solutions that don't require putting our faith in billionaires playing with atmospheric chemistry sets. A production assistant nervously approached with a note. Kimmel glanced at it, crumpled it in his fist, and tossed it aside. We're being told to wrap this up, he said tightly. Of course we are, Musk replied with a knowing smile. Can't have actual substance on late-night television. Something in Kimmel snapped. You know what, Elon? This is my show. My name's on it, and I've had enough of your condescending tech savior routine. Jimmy? His producer hissed from off stage, but he ignored her. You think you're the only one who cares about the future? Kimmel continued, his voice rising. Some of us are trying to wake people up through a different medium. Not everyone responds to spreadsheets and white papers. And how's that working out? Musk replied, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to Kimmel's growing agitation. Last I checked, emissions are still rising, and late-night comedy hasn't slowed them by a single gram. The camera operators exchanged nervous glances. This had transcended entertainment. It was now a raw, unfiltered clash of ideologies playing out on national television. I think we're done here, Kimmel finally said, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. Are we? Musk asked, making no move to leave. Because it seems like we've only just scratched the surface of your hostility toward innovation. The tension hung in the air like an electrical charge. Audience members sat frozen, afraid even to whisper to one another. This was no longer the light entertainment they had expected when they lined up for tickets earlier that day. Security, Kimmel said quietly, a word never before uttered during an interview segment. Musk's eyebrows shot up. Really, Jimmy? That's your response to intellectual challenge? Call security? The audience audibly gasped. In the control room, network executives watched in horror as ratings surged to unprecedented levels. This was Either catastrophe or genius, no one was quite sure which. Two security guards appeared at the edge of the stage, looking uncertainly between Kimmel and his production team. The studio had never faced this situation before, an interview devolving into what appeared to be an imminent ejection of one of the world's most powerful businessmen. Musk slowly stood up, his height advantage over Kimmel suddenly apparent. "Is this really how you want this to end, Jimmy?" he asked quietly. "With security escorting me off because you can't handle being challenged?" Kimmel was trapped. He'd called security in a moment of anger, but following through would transform this uncomfortable exchange into an international incident. Walking it back would seem weak. The audience waited in suspended animation for his next move. "I want a real conversation," Kimmel said finally, voice tight. "Not a sales pitch for unproven technology that could have catastrophic consequences." "Then let's have that conversation," Musk replied, gesturing for the security guards to stay back. "No jokes, no deflection, no corporate talking points. Just two people who supposedly both want a habitable planet." A murmur ran through the audience. This wasn't in the script, wasn't how these shows were supposed to work. The producer was frantically signaling, but whatever semblance of control she had over the situation had evaporated entirely. "Fine," Kimmel said, taking a deep breath. "Cards on the table. I think you're proposing a dangerous shortcut that lets polluters off the hook while giving tech companies another revenue stream. Your solution treats the symptom, not the disease." Musk nodded, his expression losing some of its defensive edge. "And I think incremental approaches have failed for 30 years, while emissions skyrocketed. We need both aggressive carbon reduction and technological interventions. But every time someone proposes the latter, they're demonized as playing God." The studio was silent. The cameras, which should have cut away minutes ago, continued rolling as two cultural icons engaged in something television rarely permitted, an actual exchange of conflicting ideas. "What about unintended consequences?" Kimmel asked, his tone still challenging but less hostile. "Once we start manipulating atmospheric conditions, where does it end?" "Every technology has unintended consequences," Musk countered, "including doing nothing. The question is whether we can mitigate and adapt faster than disaster strikes." The production assistant who had approached earlier returned, this time whispering urgently in Kimmel's ear. The host's expression changed from irritation to surprise. "Apparently," Kimmel announced, "we're trending worldwide. The network has decided to extend the segment." He looked directly at Musk. "It seems people are interested in an actual debate, not just entertainment." Musk's lips curved into a hint of a smile. "People are smarter than the entertainment industry gives them credit for." For the next 17 minutes, an eternity in television time, the two men engaged in what many would later call the most substantive discussion of climate intervention technologies ever broadcast in prime time. Kimmel pressed on issues of accountability and corporate overreach. Musk acknowledged risks while emphasizing the greater danger of inaction. Neither fully convinced the other, but something shifted in the studio's atmosphere. The audience, initially drawn by celebrity and entertainment, found themselves witnessing something rarer: authentic intellectual engagement between people with fundamentally different approaches to solving a shared problem. "We're going to wrap this up," Kimmel eventually said, checking his watch. "We've completely destroyed tonight's schedule." "Worth it, I think," Musk replied, the earlier tension largely dissipated. Kimmel nodded, then turned to the camera. "That was not what any of us expected tonight, but maybe it's what we needed." He extended his hand to Musk, who took it after a moment's hesitation. As they shook hands, the audience erupted into applause, not the polite, prompted clapping of typical talk shows, but spontaneous approval of something genuine breaking through television's polished veneer. "Come back anytime," Kimmel said, only half joking, "but maybe warn me first." "Next time, I'll bring the data in advance," Musk replied with a rare flash of humor. The show cut to commercial, and backstage, both men were immediately surrounded by their respective teams. Musk's security detail was urgently checking their phones, while Kimmel's producers huddled around a monitor displaying the night's ratings. "You realize this changes everything," Kimmel's executive producer said, shaking her head in disbelief. "Every talk show host will be trying to engineer confrontations like this by next week." "They'll fail," Kimmel replied, loosening his tie. "You can't manufacture that kind of exchange." Across the green room, Musk was fielding calls from Tesla's PR team, who were simultaneously panicked and elated. The company's stock had jumped 3 points in after-hours trading, and social media was exploding with debate about atmospheric intervention technologies, a topic that had previously struggled to capture public attention. As Musk prepared to leave, he paused by Kimmel's dressing room door. The host was alone, reviewing the segment on a tablet. "That wasn't what I expected when I agreed to come on," Musk said. Kimmel looked up. "Me neither. But it wasn't terrible. Television? It wasn't terrible conversation either," Musk replied. A moment of understanding passed between them, not agreement, but recognition of something valuable in their clash of perspectives. The next morning, clips of their confrontation dominated every platform. Climate scientists reported unprecedented public interest in geoengineering research. Talk shows scrambled to book similar debates. Network executives analyzed every second of the exchange, trying to bottle lightning. But what they couldn't quantify was the rarest commodity in modern media: authenticity born of genuine conviction. For 17 minutes, two influential men had abandoned their public personas and engaged as flawed, passionate humans grappling with civilization's greatest challenge. 3 days later, Kimmel opened his monologue by addressing the viral moment. "People keep asking if that was staged," he told his audience. "Let me be clear. If I could stage something that successful, I'd be running a studio, not hosting this show." The audience laughed, but there was something different in their reaction. A new expectation that perhaps, occasionally, late night television might venture beyond comfortable entertainment into the messy territory of real conversation. As for Musk, he simply posted a single tweet. "Atmospheric drones white paper downloaded 3.7 million times since Kimmel appearance. Civil discourse works. Who knew?" It wasn't world peace. It wasn't a solution to climate change. But in a media landscape designed for conflict without resolution, it was something almost as rare: a moment of genuine human connection across the divide of ideological difference, witnessed by millions who recognized, perhaps subconsciously, how hungry they were for exactly that.